Hi, I'm Sue Witter. I am a practitioner at the West Valley Center for Spiritual Living. And I understand Reverend Karen, our senior minister, was out here and worked with your board. I had actually tried to talk her into going away with me. I went to San Diego for just a period of silent retreat, and you guys had her instead of me. So I'll forgive you. No. And I have been a practitioner since 2004, and I've been involved with Science of Mind.
Let me get your mic back. It looks like it's
Okay.
it's kind of didn't do its thing. Can you put it out? Switch it battery out.
Oh, all right.
Here, you can use this in the interim.
All right, in the interim. So I go to Lake Havasu once a month and do their church there, and I'm always the one that speaks at a picnic because I'm loud, with or without a mic. When Saturday Night Live did the Loud Family, I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember the Loud Family, but I went, oh, they've been in my house. They've been following my family. How did that happen? Anyway, so today I'm going to talk about the right questions. And the Centers for Spiritual Living has their annual theme is Timeless Wisdom and Evolutionary Vision. And I think that you're working with the book on Joyous Living really has such a beautiful connection with that overall theme that it always makes me excited to know that Spirit is always in charge no matter what, and there's just ways that everything comes together. And so as I looked at the readings for this past week, the theme for the week was enjoy yourself. So did you? Good. So if you're talking about joyous living, I will tell you that I love the work that's been done on the brain with spirituality and meditation and whatnot. And so when I think about joy, I find great comfort in what they've learned about the brain. So the brain has what they call a default network. And the brain is really hardwired to determine mostly, are you safe or not safe? Are you a good person, a bad person? Is this, how can I be safe here in this environment? The brain is also hardwired to tell us a story, to have it make sense. And the brain is forever looking at what's working, what's not working, and asking that am I safe question. And the story then makes up the answer to whether or not I'm safe. And the good news or the bad news, depending on how you look at it, is the brain doesn't care about accuracy. It just wants to know. It wants to be able to determine whether or not I'm okay. And so for me, one of the great things in studying all of that did for me was it gave me sort of a freedom to say, I don't have to believe it just because I think it. And I can choose a new thought. So there's a book by Gay Hendricks called The Big Leap, and he talks about upper limits and that we have a way of being that comes from our family that just is sort of our place where we have this comfort level with joy. And his whole theory is that when you bump up above that, you kind of get a little anxious and you're not quite sure, and there's a part of you that wants to draw back down into that place of comfort. And his whole philosophy in that book is how to be more joyous and more happy when you bump up and out of that upper limit. And I worked for years with a minister on a monthly basis, sometimes more. And he talks about the nervous system is hardwired for chaos and for joy. And the more chaos you can tolerate, the less joy you can tolerate. The more joy you can tolerate, the less chaos you can tolerate. And I know that is really true in my life. The more I focus on living in this position and place of joy, the less I really am willing to tolerate anything that resembles anything unlike that. And it brings me then to the topic for this talk, which is the right questions. So for me, it's important when I think about the fact that the brain is always hardwired for story, then the questions that I ask myself become really important. So if you'll give me the first slide. I love this quote. Joy is the most infallible sign of the presence of God. That's the first quote in the book you're studying. The infallible sign of the presence of God. And that for me really does say, so I know that there are a lot of formal religions that talk about the fact that we are inherently bad and we're worthless worms of the dust. One thing I love about Buddhism is they believe that we all have basic goodness. And I think that this is in alignment with that joy is our birthright, that joy is what God wants for us. Joy is what would be our natural state if we could just let go of that need to control. And you were talking about that. It's like, oh, I will raise my hand for that. Control. Janet Jackson, Control. That was my theme song for a good chunk of my life. Anyway, so if you want to jump to the next slide. From Religious Science, published in 1932, the divine plan is one of freedom. Bondage is not God-ordained. Freedom is the birthright of every living soul. All instinctively feel this. The truth points to freedom under law, thus inherent nature of man is forever seeking to express itself in terms of freedom. We shall do well to listen to this inner voice, for it tells us of a life wonderful in scope and love beyond our fondest dreams of a freedom that the soul craves. Beyond our fondest dreams. So if you'll go to the next one, what I do, I'll give you a series of quotes and then we'll talk about the common themes in them. Another, this is a Bible verse, and it's probably my favorite Bible verse of all times. For I know the plans I have for you, saith the Lord, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. Then you'll call on me and find me. You will listen, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart, for I will be found by you. I will be found by you. God is always there. God is always in us. It is always available. It is in us and all around us. And it's ours for the asking. That plan that God has for us. And one more quick one is life will become this isn't in the slides. I'm sorry. See, that's what happens. You turn the slides in on Friday, and then you work a little on the talk on Saturday, and new things jump out. But this is a quick one. Life will become a grand song when we realize that since God is for us, no one can be against us. We shall cease to merely exist. We shall live. And so it becomes a question of, what do you believe about God? Do you believe that that's true? And that, for me, is ultimately what gives us a foundation to stand on, what we believe about God. So I'm going to jump for a minute into the book, Journal, a Joyous Living Journal. And this was from this week, from March 4th. You are a multidimensional being who, when you leave the attachment of producing in the old way, can open up to the fuller aspect of the universe with all the richness that comes from knowing the life source. What lies beyond your present way of doing and knowing fills all voids and then some. So if you want to actually just jump up 2 slides for me. One more. Okay. So that quote talked about producing in the old way, right? And we all have a way that we operate. And so if my family were to have a family crest, it would look like this. What you are is what you produce. I come from a family of overachievers. I come from a family that you're tracked on what you produce, and it's only good for today unless you screw up, and then it's on your card for life. So for me, that's my old way. But it's important to look at, what is your old way? What is your way of being? If your family had a crest, what would it say? because we have that default mode that we fall back into. And if we know what it is much easier to make a new choice. Because I think it really boils down to two things: living from the inside out. It isn't about what's outside of us, it is about what is inside of us. And we are the ones who determine all of those things. We determine everything, actually. We determine everything in terms of meaning. We are the ones that assess whether it's good or bad, right or wrong, should or shouldn't. We're the ones that either choose to accept our parents or our culture or some form of historical meaning about something, or whether we say, Byron Katie, I love Byron Katie's questions. The first time I heard them, I could barely pick myself up off the floor. Is it true? Is it really true? Is it really true? And you know, when you look at things, when you begin to take out my old way of thinking, that it's amazing how quickly you can step away from that. That when we begin to say, I can choose something other than my old way of being, then life begins to look very different. And the other thing is that we are always at choice. We are always, always at choice. In Love and Law, Ernest Holmes says, no living soul can contribute one iota of happiness or peace or health to your life, and no living soul can take one iota away from you unless you allow it to. I'm the one that chooses. I'm the one that chooses. And for me, that choice frequently then brings change. And change, for years we hear things like, when the pain of being the way you are becomes greater than the pain of change, then you change. One of my teachers said to me one time, there's another side to that coin. In the presence of enough love, you feel safe enough and good enough and worthy enough to change. And so I can't say how important for me that belief that having a spiritual community to spend your time with, to have individual people that you work with, whether it's a practitioner or a counselor or a minister, but someone who can help you stop and step back and look at your choices. That is such an important thing, because divine discontent is a term that I love. That when we're faced with the notion of change, I try to step back and say, this has the potential to be divine discontent. Am I willing to allow that discontent to pull me forward, as opposed to cause me to be like a roly-poly bug and curl up? So the power of choice, if you want to hop to one more slide for me. The power of choice with which man has endowed is either his greatest blessing or his greatest curse. Properly understood, it can lift him to the heights. Misunderstood, it can drag him to the depths. He is free to choose anything which he wishes, but must accept the responsibility for his choices, because of inexorable law will create the experiences according to the choices. Now, this was written in 58, so I know that a lot of people try to gender-free them. I just say, please know that this was written in 58, and it was just the way they spoke. Next one. We cannot live a choiceless life. Every day, each moment, every second, there is choice. If it were not so, we would not be individuals. And then this quote is in the Joyous journal, J.K. Rowling. It is our choices that show us what we are what we truly are, far more than our abilities. I really believe that. When I read that, I went, oh, I knew you were a rockin' good writer, but yes, I love that. And then the last slide that I had quote about choice, from a book by Debbie Ford called The Right Questions, and I'm going to be using that today. She's just an amazingly wise woman who is no longer with us. Every day, each of us makes a multitude of choices that will impact our lives. What's imperative for each of us to know is that no matter how large or small, or easy or difficult, each choice that we make, individually or collectively, alters the direction of our lives. Choice matters. What we choose matters. And so to be able to effectively do that, we have to be conscious, awake, and aware of our choices. Theodore Roosevelt said, "Comparison is the thief of joy." Comparison is the thief of joy. And if you think about a lot of the meaning that we assign to what's happening, either what we believe or don't believe, or what's happening around us, has to do with some basis of comparison. It should or shouldn't be this way. I should or shouldn't be this way. You should or shouldn't be this way. It should or shouldn't be this way. This is good. This is bad. This is right. This is wrong. Comparison is the thief of joy. Being able to say, good, bad, right, wrong, or indifferent, this was the choice I made. And I can choose what to do with it. So for me, two of the most powerful words in the English language are I declare or I decide. Because when you declare something, you declare what's going to come up in your life next. I declare. One of the best things I think we teach is that no matter what's in your life today, a new choice can make it different tomorrow. So when you actually look at the fact that my choices create the roadmap of my life, then it becomes almost an imperative to think clearly about the choices that we make. Conscious, awake, and aware choices. You know, there are times, I don't know about you, one of the flags I have in my life is this phrase, you people. What is wrong with you people? What were they thinking? Right? So when anything even remotely related to you people comes up, that's one of those flags for me. Oh, and you're thinking of you people, then the judgment that you talked about is rocking and rolling in my life. You people. So the power of choice, my favorite example of the power of choice and meaning and authority, when you make a decision, when you use those words, I decide or I declare, you have to believe that you have the authority to make that declaration. So think about this. When the Pilgrims came across and rammed into Plymouth Rock, and we were around for a while, and we got grumpy with the king, how is it that this country was formed? It was formed because a group of people made a decision. Who gave them the right to make that decision? They did. The king certainly didn't give them the right to make that decision. It was pretty vested in our taxes. We decided. We decided. And that, for me, is this fabulous roadmap that is our country. We exist as an autonomous nation because a group of people came together and said, I decide we're not doing this anymore. We're doing that. And if it can be something as huge as creating a whole nation, we certainly can do it individually. So one of the things in the whole process for me is in the Science of Mind and a lot of the classes I taught, they use the term spiritual bypass. You know, we believe it's all good, it's all God, and we need to turn to what's good and go there. But Ernest Holmes says, look the discordant fact in the face. We should be able to look the discordant fact in the face and deny its reality. We should be able to look at a wrong condition with the knowledge that we can change it. Discordant facts are absolutely changed when we make a new choice. So the book you're studying about medicine, Lisa Rankin is an incredible writer. You will love studying her book. But that power of owning the discordant fact is amazing. So there are times when I have been known to say to my coworkers when we were in the same building often, I would say, "I'm sorry, peeps. I put my grumpy pants on this morning and I cannot seem to get them off. So I apologize up front for this whole day. If I'm grumpy with you, it is nothing personal. Don't take it personally. Just know that Sue has her grumpy pants on today." And there's something magic, first of all, about doing that because we all laugh and go, "Yes, you wear them a little more often than you should some weeks." Or, "Do you haven't had those on in a while?" But being able to own where you are is the first step to making a new choice. Because if you're here in Scottsdale and you want to go to my house in Sun City, you better know where you are and where you're going, or you'll never create the right path to get there. You have to start with where you are, even if you don't like it. Start with where you are. So there are several books that I love about questioning. So one is Debbie Ford's book, The Right Questions. Incredible book. This one, for any of you who are journalers, this is the best book ever. Ask Yourself This by Wendy Craig Purcell. It is extraordinary. She breaks down questions to grow spiritually, to grow in relationship, to grow in community, all kinds of things. Extraordinary book, and I go to it often. And I laugh at them, some of them often. Things like, how much time do you give God to work it out? Some days, pretty good. Other days, okay, I got this. You didn't give me an answer fast enough, I'm just going from here. One that I love is, how safe would it be for others to walk the corridors of your mind? Some days, it's fun. Some days you need a flak jacket and an armored vehicle. But if I'm in a you people time, it's just not a good corridor to be in. There are all kinds of fun questions that she has. And I really encourage you to pick up both of those books because they really are an opportunity to begin to look at the ultimate question is, how can I see this differently? To me, that's one of the most, when I'm having a you people time or anything else where I'm having an unconscious, unawake, or unaware time, Lord, help me to see this differently. Help me to see this differently. That's one of the most important questions I have ever learned to ask myself. How can I see this differently? And Byron Katie's questions, I'll go back to those in a bit. But if you jump to the next quote, it's another Debbie Ford quote. The quality of our choices will dictate whether we struggle in frustration or live an extraordinary life, the life of our dreams. What makes each of us special and distinguished from other life forms is our capacity to weigh our options and make conscious, deliberate choices. Choice might just be our most precious gift. I can't tell you how much I believe that. Choice is our most precious gift. And whether you're choosing to have your grumpy pants on or whether you're choosing to laugh and have a good time, it doesn't really matter. It really doesn't. Because in every moment, you can choose again. One of the hardest things I've ever had to learn to do was to stop going, bad Sue, bad Sue, bad Sue. If I had my grumpy pants on, rather than going, sorry guys, grumpy pants day, it would be, and I think all of us are inclined to do that. So looking at the fact that we can make conscious, awake, and aware choices is such freedom and creates an opportunity for joy. So Byron Katie's book, she has what she refers to as 4 liberating questions. Is it true? Can you absolutely know that it's true? Right? Because truth very frequently is just our perception. It's the meaning that we've made up so that our brain can go safe, not safe. Good, not good. The third one is, How do you react when you believe that thought? Right? Because we choose the meaning in our life. It may be a choice from our parents, from our ministers, from our culture, but we still choose to adopt it. And then the last one is, who would I be without that thought? So I first heard it in a workshop, and the question was posed, who would you be without your story? I stopped breathing, you guys. I did. I went, and I literally could feel my heart speed up because my answer was, I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine. Because we all have our story, right? And we have our story, our family origin story. My sister, my this, and that, we all have the story. Who could we be if we let that story go? If we began to say, is it true? Can I be absolutely sure that it's true? How do I react when I have that thought? Because I don't know about you, but if you've ever had discussions in your family, there have been times that my sister would say, we're both talking at the same event, and she would go, stop. My father's name is Lee Harold Witter. My mother's name is Leona Schuneman Witter. Are we talking about the same family? Because mine didn't look the way yours did. Because we each have our own interpretation. So asking ourselves the right questions is a huge, huge, huge thing. And in Wendy Craig's Purcell's book, she asks things like, how big is my God? You know, when I start trying to control things, God becomes very small because it's through my lens, right? Through my little lens. But if I'm willing to let God be God, and how big can I be? God is infinite, something that our finite mind can't grasp. The more I've learned about this process, the easier my concept of God becomes. It's infinite. I will never comprehend it, for I am finite. And she says, what am I saying yes to in my life? What am I looking for? I love this one. Who am I trying to please? A lot of times we're trying to please people who haven't been with us for a long time. Mom, dad, preacher, brother, sister, someone who's had an impact in our life. We're still looking at the world through them. What am I resisting? Because we all know what you resist persists. Who am I blaming? If you are a blamer, if you have a You People Day, you got to know you're a blamer too. Brene Brown, if you look up Brene Brown and blaming, you will see the funniest 3-minute short imaginable. And when she talks about how blaming can run over really fast. Here's a great one. What if it could be easy and fun? I remember, so the same minister that I worked with for years, at New Year's, he has a word ceremony, and we pull a rock out of a bowl. And he pulled one out, and it said perseverance. And I said, put that rock right back. Put it back right now. I will not have a year of perseverance. Perseverance is work. It is awful. Perseverance, bad. Put that rock back. And he burst out laughing, and he said, how about you persevere to have more fun? How about you persevere to have more God in your life? How about you persevere to see the world as a joyous place? And he went, never thought about that. So who or what am I trying to change? That's a big one. And I love this one. What yardstick am I using? Whose yardstick am I using? Frequently, if we're struggling, it's not ours. It's not ours. What assumptions am I making? Could they possibly be wrong? Wrong? Are you kidding? So in the process for me, in the morning and the evening, I have some questions that I ask. Things like, how do I want to feel today? Another great book, Danielle Laporte, The Desire Map. Great book because she talks about setting intentions with soul. And that our level of joy and happiness and how we feel is what drives our bus. And so if we make sure that our intentions really reflect how we want to feel, that it's a whole new ball game. And so I will say, how do I want to feel today? And if I ask just that one question, it makes a huge difference. So in Debbie Ford's book, The Right Questions, she also has some great things, a whole series of choices that she outlines that dim your light and a whole series of choices that light your fire. And she has like 2 pages of them, and they're really fabulous. Things that make your fire roar are things that dim your light. So again, great book to have handy. But her big questions are, will this choice propel me toward an inspiring future, or will it get me stuck in the past? Am I standing in my power, or am I trying to please another? Am I looking for what's right and what's wrong? Will this choice add to my life force, or will it rob me of energy? Does it empower me or disempower me? Is it an act of self-love or self-sabotage? You know, there's all kinds of questions that we can learn to ask ourselves that are so, so important. And for me, when I'm in a position of a you people or some other place where if I look at it and I say, I don't like this, I don't want to feel this way, those questions become important. Give me one more slide, if you would. What if it's really this simple? Ultimately, what if the question simply is, do I like the outcome of this choice? If the answer is yes, keep doing it. If the answer is no, choose again. And it's just like, help me see this differently is a huge one. This is the other one. What if it's really as simple as saying, do I like the outcome of this choice? It pulls the judgment out of it. That I should or shouldn't, that I'm good or bad, that you're good or bad, or we're good or bad. Just, do I like the outcome? Do I like this, how I feel when I do this? There's not very much judgment in that, and that's what I like about that question. So, if you want to give me the principles slide, I think that should be next. Here we go. So Jill, I saw that Jill always has practicing the principles for you. So I decided to do the same. So the first one is own your choices without judgment. Be kind to yourself. One of the greatest gifts, I think, for many of us that I've talked to during COVID is that there has been a softening, a sense of compassion, a sense of understanding, a sense of self-compassion, where we've been sort of forced in our isolation to look at ourselves and to question our choices. And many of us have walked away with a knowledge that being kinder is far more important. Next one is be willing to look the discordant fact in the face. And Ernest Holmes talks about looking at that discordant fact as the current condition, but it is not a permanent condition. It is just the condition in this moment. Just the condition in this moment. And knowing that makes it much easier to just stop, stand still, and own where I am. Because I know it's not permanent. The next one is be clear about what you want. You know, the universe will respond to whatever you ask for. If you aren't clear, it gives you an unclear answer. My favorite from my life is very first fundamentals science of mind used to be 30 weeks long. And they've since broken it up into multiple classes, but it was a whole year, Science of Mind 101. So we set an intention, and I wanted a new car. And my brain went, that is really stupid, Sue, because you have no money for a deposit. You have, it's like I had all these reasons why it couldn't be true. And then I went, I choose a new car. I totaled that car. And the insurance helped me buy a new one. From that moment on, I went, I choose things in a happy, healthy way. I choose things in a happy, healthy way. Happy, healthy way. And so if there's any uncertainty in me, that's really how it becomes. Okay, there's a part of me that's going, you don't have the money for this car. This is a stupid request. What were you thinking? Total the car. It's like, nope, don't want that. Happy, healthy way. Happy, healthy way. Happy, healthy way. Happy, healthy way. So find that thing which for you, happy, healthy way seems to work for me. But each of us, if we're making a choice that we're challenged by, find whatever that happy, healthy way version is for you. Because the universe will give it to you if you don't give it some constraints. I don't particularly like that one. Next one. So here's an important one. Whose job? See, I get confused. There's God's job and my job. God's job, my job. And I frequently get them very confused. My job is never how. It is never how. My job is what. My job is clear what. God's job is how and pretty much everything else. As long as I know that I can be clear on my job and not try to get into God's job, things flow much, much more smoothly. And then ask yourself the right questions. And do I like the outcome of my choices? Let it be really simple and really kind. And then the last one is remember, you are always free to choose, and you are always free to choose again and again and again and again. When we know that we're free to choose again, it gives us the ability to lighten up, to look at things in a kinder way. So the last quote that I'll give you is actually from a book called the Joyous Freedom Journal. It's the same Petra Weldes and Christian Sorensen. And it's in the introduction, and I love it. It says, "The soul craves freedom and joy. The freedom of self-expression, the joy of being. This is our inheritance and our birthright. Your joy and your freedom not only bless you, but also bless everyone around you." That's important because, a lot of us are taught, well, who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? I think that this is my birthright. That's who I think I am. I am a child of God. I have choice, and I choose new. It says, as your life becomes one of joyous freedom, you respond to and interact with others in your life in a new way. This changes everything, including the emergent reality itself. Each of us is a point of inspiration and light. When one light brightens, lifts, and frees itself of fear and self-imposed limitation, and shouts with joy, it cannot help but spread that light around, lifting everything. Another expression that I remind myself of often is, a rising tide lifts all boats. A rising tide lifts all boats. And in a time in our culture where things are a little out of control, for me, that's a really important thing. A rising tide lifts all boats. I make a difference in the world. My choice for joy makes a difference. So if you will, just take a deep breath and we can anchor this in prayer. Right here, right now, in the presence and the activity of Spirit, that power that is pure joy, pure happiness, love, peace, compassion, wisdom, clarity, and so much more. It is the power that lives and moves and has its being in, through, and as me, in, through, and as everyone in this room, everyone involved with this community, in fact, everyone everywhere. That we live and move and have our being in and as this power. So as we go forward this week, we do so with a sense of excitement, with a sense of enthusiasm, and with a sense, an expectancy of good, and more good, because we know that that is our birthright. And that anything unlike that gives us the opportunity to simply say, I choose anew. I choose again. I am free to choose. And with that knowledge, there is an opening beyond imagining that we can walk through. So as we move forward through the week, that opening is wider and wider. The light is brighter and brighter. The choices become easy and joyful. I accept this with such a grateful heart, knowing that indeed the synchronicity of law always says yes. And so it is.